So what I did, I took a student of mine from my class and went around in the village for the next few days to make a list of people who borrowed from the moneylenders. In a few days, I made the list complete, and it had 42 names on my list. And the total money they borrowed was $27. And I couldn't believe, because I never heard anything about in terms of $27. I'm trained to think in terms of millions of dollars and billions of dollars. In the classroom, we talk about the national development plans, 5-year plans, if you remember those days. We used to be big in 5-year plans. So we talk about the 5-year plans and how investments have to be made in the country so that gradually economy picks up and poor people improve their life and things go better. But here I see completely different picture. Only a few yards from the classroom where I teach. It's not on the other side of the moon, it's right there. So I was amazed that these person like us teaching those economic theories or economic discussions that we have in our classrooms have absolutely no idea what goes on in the village next door. And there's no solution to that in our discussion. So after I overcome my shock, I can see that how terrible that problem is. But suddenly it occurred in my mind, the problem is tough, problem is very difficult, but the solution is so simple. And it excited me by the simpleness of the solution. It just hit me. Instead of worrying about the whole problem, I can just take $27 out of my own pocket and give the money to these 42 people to return the money to the moneylenders. And they will be free. Moneylenders cannot touch them anymore. I was very excited. And I did exactly that. I gave this $27 to all these 42 people, person by person, telling them that here is the money, you return the money and you continue what you're doing. And you can think about paying me back when you are comfortable, when it's easy for you. Don't worry about it. And I thought, this is something I did. I feel good about it. At least I solved one problem in a very concrete way. But something else happened, which I didn't expect. When I go back to the village again, talking to people, now people look at me in a very different way. They look at me in a very strange way, as if I have descended from the heaven. I said, my God, for $27, if you can become an angel, why shouldn't you do more of this? You still can afford to give some more money. And if it's so important for their life, you should do it. So that kind of new question haunted me. How do I do more? I could still give some money from my pocket. And I was thinking, no, that maybe not be the solution, because it has to go on in its own way. Again, another brilliant idea came to my mind. Why don't I link these people to the bank which is located in the campus? And bank should be very happy, because after all, this is a tiny little money for the bank to give it to the people, and they become the hero, and everybody will appreciate what they are doing. So I thought it's a win-win situation from both sides. And I become the matchmaker for them. So with the kind of this brilliant thought in my mind, I go to talk to the manager of the bank, and I propose to him that this is your opportunity. You lend the money to the poor people in the village. He almost fell from the sky. He couldn't believe that I have such an audacious plan for him. He said, no, it cannot be done. Bank cannot lend money to the poor people. And the more he insists, the more I raise question. Why shouldn't bank give it? What is the problem with the bank? And only explanation he could give, bank cannot give loans to the poor people because they are not creditworthy. I said, how do you know that? Have you ever given loans to the poor people? He said, no, I have not done that. So how do you know? I said, everybody knows that. Poor people cannot pay back because their stomach is empty. If you give the money, they will just eat and forget about it. I said, is it that simple? Then why should the moneylenders lend money to them? They know it too. Anyway, I couldn't persuade him. He couldn't persuade me. So we locked into a big fight. So that fight went to the higher officials in the banking hierarchy, went to talk to the senior officials in the banking world. Everybody tells me the same thing. It went on for months and no solution. Finally, I came up with another idea. This time I learned from their language and I used their language. I said, why don't you accept me as a guarantor? I sign all your papers, I take the risk, and you give the money. All I want to open your door. And that's important for me. So this time, since I speak their language, they couldn't really throw me out of the window. So they had to continue this dialogue, and finally, I think to get rid of me, they agreed. So at least they thought this will end the whole story, and I'll learn in a hard way that it doesn't work. So they agreed, and I was very happy that finally I won the case, and I can go ahead and take the money. And that's exactly what I did. I took the money from the bank and started giving the money to the people in the village. And the bank manager on the first day said, Dr. Yunus, say goodbye to your money. This money will never come back. And get ready to pay back the money. I said, I have no idea. I have never done this. I thought this is the right thing to do, and I'm doing it. I'll find a way, and I'm sure people will pay back. But if not, I'll find a way how to do it right. So I came up with tiny little ideas to try so that people find it easy to pay back. And it worked. Every penny came back. So I got very excited that what I never imagined that it will happen that way, although I was hoping that it will work. Now this time it's real, it worked. So with that enthusiasm, I kept on expanding this. The more I become successful, the more bank becomes reluctant. Because he was hoping that the first time it will be such a disaster that I will not pursue this anymore. But it was not a disaster. So he was hoping second time it will be a disaster. It was not a disaster. So every time it becomes successful, he feels very disappointed. So seeing his reluctance, I thought that may be not the right thing to do. In the beginning, I had no idea whether this is going to work or not. I had a belief. That's the only thing I had. And now it's not a belief. It's a demonstrated facts. I said, if anybody in the world tells me now that poor are not creditworthy, I'll go and scream my head off telling that this is a lie. This is not true. Because I see it every day. People are paying back 100%. How can they not be creditworthy? Where in Bangladesh, rich people borrow from big banks and don't care to pay back. In Bangladesh, banks are filled with big loan defaulters. And here's the poor people taking tiny loans and paying back. So I thought maybe I should create a separate bank. Bank which will do exclusively business with the poor people. I needed a license. I needed a permission from the government. So I went to the government. Another struggle began to persuade the government. Because government has a crazy idea. How can you have a bank for the poor people? And they started arguing with me. We have enough of problem running banks for the rich people because they don't pay back. Now, why do you want to create more problem by creating another bank for the poor people? And I kept saying, look, this experience will be much different than the experience that you have because here are your records.